Hello everyone, damenshi here once again with Tempus Part 4. There's going to be a lot of plot-related content in this one, however, as opposed to the previous video, which was essentially 90% combat. If you are not a fan of a lot of exposition, then you probably don't need to stick around. If you care, however, or do deem plot-related information important, then continue watching. What has basically become a recurring theme at this point is the fact that many of the buildings in Silver Ice are not in fact enterable, but I'm guessing you could already notice that, judging by the lack of doors. That aside, the two major buildings that do exist in this town, or at least that are enterable, are in fact ones that are more or less necessary for this point in time. The rest will come in their time. The rest will come in their time. Yes. Much of this video is in fact going to be, again, a lot of cutscenes, text, etc. So, to be quite frank, there's almost not much I need to say. A lot of this is just going to be done of its own accord, so... if I have anything particularly noteworthy to point out, then I will, but for the most part, this video might be by and large silent. Something I should point out, however, is that this will be, in fact, the last installment of the Let's Develop series as far as Chapter 1 is concerned. After this, I'm going to spend a lot of time essentially tweaking things from here. But, as I've mentioned before, these plans will probably take some time, and until then, you'll have these videos to keep you company. That and the sweet buttery sound of my voice. No, it's not really. But... yeah, I'm dead. You don't mind, do you? You know, maybe it's just the fact that I've replayed these cutscenes countless times, but I almost wonder just how fluid this dialogue would actually sound if spoken aloud. I do that for the most part. I actually do say dialogue to myself out loud when I'm writing this usually. But for the most part, I mean, it usually comes across as cohesive and natural sounding enough, but sometimes I can't help but wonder. But again, it might just be because I'm a bit burnt out with replaying the same areas over and over again. What I will also say is that I do my best to set things up at this point, because I figured you as the player have gone through a substantial amount of fighting and trekking and whatnot, so I figured I'd switch gears a bit and kind of fill out some information, especially since the character of Isaac and the village of Silver Ice, as well as its inhabitants, do have a bit of history that I feel I should go into in order to get some important points across. And that's kind of what this entire roughly 15 to 20 minute segment is about. Good old input lag. I still swear that that has something to do with the recording equipment I'm using and not the actual game. It's always good to return from an intense 5-year training period to have one of your closest friends yell at you. Really demonstrates the bond, I'd think. If Kyra's decision to join Isaac and Veril seems a bit abrupt, I promise there's a reason for that. I swear it's not a product of bad writing. For once. Shut up. And thus, we move on. Headed toward Milliken to complete the transaction and make our way to Mar at long last. Where, in my opinion, the true game will begin. Yeah, I kind of figured this entire first chapter is kind of an introductory sequence, as is appropriate, I would imagine. But yes, when our party arrives in Mar is kind of when I feel that everything truly starts getting put into motion. But for now, just forget I said anything and enjoy the rather mundane atmosphere that is this early stage in the adventure. Also, just as point of fact, this little shortcut here is not open until after you perform everything you need to do in Silver Eyes. I just didn't visit it beforehand. But yes, it is blocked off. However, we are not going to head straight to Milliken just yet, as we did just recently acquire a new party member, and personally I think they could do with some much needed equipment. I also noticed that I actually obtain a lot of money from battles in this game, at least at this point in time. I wonder if I should cut back a bit. I am following a certain system, but well, at the same time, I've played my handful of RPGs that are really stingy with money and make equipment really expensive, so maybe all in all it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's not like I'm splurging, and I can imagine later that some equipment pieces will be quite expensive, so perhaps in the grand scheme of things, it does work itself out. I mean, I have faith in this system, and everything's kind of intricately woven in such a way that it does work itself out, but sometimes I can't help but wonder. As what would probably be considered appropriate, Kyra is not actually capable of wearing heavy armor. It's not really in her character. And thus, we have our first devoted light armor character. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick refreshing pause here in a moment, and I'll get back to you shortly. And we're back. And just in time to arrive at the port town of Milliken once again, where nothing is complete except for the plot. That should be a slogan. And from here, we essentially just make our way back to the captain, with whom we struck a deal with before. And from there, we are allowed to move on. However, as he warns in a moment here, this is a point of no return section, as might be expected. Yes, make your preparations and do what you can here before you head out, because from this point forward, there really is no going back for a while. I mean, I imagine all games have this, right? Or at least a handful of them do. Don't complain, you knew what this was. Nice little lampshade for that potential plot hole. And cue flashback. And a second lampshade. And with that, I think that's all the plot holes nice and covered up. Or at least the potential plot holes. Though, you probably wouldn't have noticed those unless I pointed them out, huh? At least I hope not. And thus ends Chapter 1. From this point forward, I'm going to, as I've said before, go back and just make general adjustments, improvements, tweaks, that sort of thing. I'll also be working to build the areas of Arcadia itself, and from there, if all goes well, release a demo of the entirety of Chapter 1 in its full potential. From there, I'll probably continue working toward Chapter 2, and we'll probably start up the next set of Let's Develop videos by the time I have the next main section completed, but that will come most likely after the completion of the Chapter 1 areas. So, with that, that's the end of this video, and Chapter 1, and I hope to see you all next time. Until then, I bid you adieu.